Oh, the summer months, man, they go by so quickly. There's Marco D'Amico. I am Sean Starr. Summer months bring us summer showcase with some promising prospects and how they look in August. What does that mean for the future? Does that mean NHL success to be determined? But before we get to that, let's welcome in friend to the show, Little Bear. You can find them online at littlebearonline.com. Marco, you've got a couple of kitties at home, right?
I sure do.
Now, let me ask you this question, Hot Shot. Are you a dry food or are you a wet food kind of cat parent?
Why not both?
Why not both? And why not spoil your kitty with wet cat food, dry cat food, food topper? You got a fussy cat at home, Marco, in the sense that sometimes my dog Hank, we put the dry kibbles. Hank eats dry kibble, and I always get my dog food at Little Bear and littlebearonline.com. That he gets fussy. He's a spoiled dog. Sometimes I have to put little extra treats to motivate him to get there. Is that something that you can relate to, or your cat's just feasting whenever it's time to eat? Oh, here
I
comes
feel
Hank.
like at one point we're gonna get to a point where I show you my cats on one of these shows.
I hope
Uh,
so.
yeah, my cats are fiends. They
Yeah.
absolutely devour everything in front of them at all times.
So if you
They're
take
very
your
much
business, yeah,
they're very much like their owner.
littlebearonline.com, 10% off your first order. Use the promo code order one. And they have a subscription service as well. So you don't have to worry about, you can just have your schedule set. Food is delivered to you whenever you set your schedule. Never something that you're going to have to remember because the all-star staff at Little Bear Online takes care of that for you. Let's get into the summer showcase for a little bit. It's been an
Yeah.
interesting summer with Atos Koivu doing well. LJ Mooney continues from when he was drafted, being a lot of people are very impressed with what this young man has accomplished. Michael Hage had himself a little showcase too. It seemed as though into early August, it was just Canadian prospects, Montreal Canadian prospects scoring for Team Canada. Walk me through what you're hearing with the Montreal Canadiens perspective on this summer showcase, and tell us why Habs Nation should kind of start getting excited here.
Yeah, I think the obviously Atos Koivu is the one that's going to garner the most attention. Obviously, all those goals. I found it very intriguing. Obviously, being seeing him being able to take those shots. He's the opposite hand of his father, right? So he doesn't shoot from the same hand. So I always find it interesting to see how those styles differ. And obviously, Saku was more of a pass first kind of center, right? Which
Yeah.
is what made him such a good playmaker. But Atos seems to have more of a penchant for shooting, specifically that in slot delayed wrist shot, and I
Mhm.
think he put it on full display. Credit to his team. They obviously got him the puck, and he knew exactly where to be on the ice, and he converted. But I think it's a big momentum boost for a guy like him because obviously last season was not a very good season for him, battling mono as well. So now he's really kind of getting in it from a physical perspective. And a lot of the scouts that reached out to me during I was actually in Egypt while it was going on, and in Turkey, and they were saying, "Oh, this is a guy that if he could truly fill out, can be like a middle six sniper for the Canadians because he just has a nose for the net and he knows where to be on the ice. You can't teach that hockey IQ." And I think, you look at the people online that are more better positioned to talk about prospects than I have all kind of basically said the same thing. Atos Koivu's stock skyrocketed over that last week, though a summer tournament does not make a career. I will be
No,
clear on this,
no.
but I think it's sometimes difficult to let talent like that evolve in the Finnish Liga, simply because the ice is in hybrid mode, right? It's a little bit bigger, and they don't care how old you are, what kind of prospect you are, where you were drafted. They'll go veteran first nine
Mm.
times out of 10. So because of where he plays, because of the team structure, he didn't really get that much ice time last year. I expect he's going to take a lot of that confidence with him into next season and kind of be a little bit more aggressive in that score sheet.
Now, I got a couple of questions around, the Koivu, LJ Mooney, who's the prospect that has the higher chance maybe of hitting, or which one is the bigger? Like, I get the impression, and obviously the size works against LJ Mooney. Everyone becomes an instant skeptic, and the Canadians,
Yeah,
the stereotype, oh, another small guy, Habs are all over, another small guy. I get the impression watching LJ Mooney that, or reading about him, is he's very much a boomer bust guy. That
yeah,
there's no middle ground. Either if he hits, it's going to hit in a massive, massive way, and the opposite on the negative side.
yeah.
What's your
Massive.
reaction to that?
Yeah, I think massive, massive. I think there's room for simply just massive as well. Uh, to it reminds me not the same style of player, but it reminds me of the same situation of a Logan Stankoven when he was
Mm,
drafted in 2021. You just saw the talent, the personality, it just oozed, can't miss, right? And at the
right.
time, he was a first round talent. Obviously, there were reasons for him sliding in that draft. His size is one of them. But today, you see him playing, and his determination, his skill, his strength on the puck is what keeps him in the NHL and what made him such a strong piece that the Carolina Hurricanes asked for him in the Mikko Rantanen trade with the Dallas Stars. I feel like LJ Mooney is a faster, silkier kind of player than the more robust Stankoven. He's a little bit bigger, but I just feel like Mooney plays a game that could very much translate to the NHL if it wasn't for the fact that the Canadians already had Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield on the team. But when
Right.
you're picking in the fourth round, fifth round, this is the kind of risk you take. This is the kind of guy you go and get. And so one of the things I found interesting is that the US team did him, no favors. He basically went out and outworked everyone.
Hmm.
Yes, he played on the top line, but he was the hardest working and most notable player on that top line when he was given the chance. And I think when you look at smaller skilled players, the differentiator for me, as because they got skill, they got hockey IQ, it's that work ethic. It's
Right.
that how aggressive is he in the corners? How good is he at protecting his body? Because you look at a guy like Caden Gooley, for example. I absolutely adore Caden Gooley defensively. He's not the biggest defenseman at 6'1", but what Caden Gooley doesn't do that worries me for a bigger player is he doesn't protect himself very well on
Right.
the ice. He leaves himself exposed. Whereas you look at a guy like Cole Caulfield rarely leaves himself exposed. The one time I've seen Cole Caulfield get smoked in an open ice hit was because of a lazy back pass from Mike Hoffman. I'll never forget it. He got
Huh.
smoked middle of the Bell Center ice. But usually Caulfield is very self-aware,
Yes.
very positionally sound, knows where he is, and knows where everybody else is. And I feel like Mooney is the exact same way, has that elite hockey IQ, and just the dancing with the puck is just absolutely sublime. So to me, I agree with you. I think he's a top six player or he's a bust. I think that's the key. But I think that, the way that he played for the program last year, the way that he showed up at the summer showcase, and the way that the University of Minnesota is talking about him, I've had a couple of conversations.
Hmm.
If he impresses to start the season, he's a legitimate chance of being on that roster for the World
Right.
Junior Championships in December.
There's Marco D'Amico. Now, listen, I need to know, over your shoulder, hanging on the back of your door, is that a dirt bike outfit? Is that a kimono? Is that a gi? Are you taking martial arts? What is that over there? What is that? Is it?
Oh,
Oh,
that's
here he's gonna go get it, everybody. He's got a hanger. What is? Look at this. Oh, look at that, dude.
it's the
That is old
Grant
school.
Needham jersey.
The original number 9 for, wow,
Grant
the
Needham,
Montreal Impact. That's Supra. Is that Supra or is that Montreal Impact? And why do you have a
Montreal
Marco
Impact.
D'Amico as a Grant Needham Saputo branded Montreal Impact? That's not Supra.
I don't know. I don't think so. I
You're
don't
not.
think so.
Are you old enough to remember the Montreal Supra playing at Saint Claude Robillard?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I also
Yeah.
remember
Okay.
the Montreal Impact playing at Claude Robillard.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. How do you
But
have a
I know
Granny? What's that doing there?
Grant and my dad used to work together
Oh,
after his soccer career, so he was able to get a signed jersey. We used to go to a lot of games.
That's awesome. Ah, that's cool. I'm glad I
Yeah, well,
asked.
I put it out there ever since the team announced its rebuild, and I keep it up there to kind of like put into the universe a kind of back to roots rebranding. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Good. Listen, at least they acknowledge that nothing's perfect there. But maybe Marco D'Amico will have a CF Montreal podcast on this channel as we branch out. Probably not, though. Marco's very busy. But let's talk about, speaking of busy, did anybody on the Montreal Canadiens prospect tree have a better summer than Michael Hage? I mean, this guy was turning heads, scoring goals, part of Team Canada, certainly this summer, and had himself a nice little showcase. Like, we're starting to see, you know, reasons why the Montreal Canadiens were high on Michael Hage. Walk me through
Yeah.
how impressive he's been and what people are saying about what Michael Hage has done this summer.
Yeah, well, he had a goal in every single game in the
Yeah.
all 4 games, right? But
Yeah.
I think one of the things that they really liked was he was sound two-way as well, and that's one of the biggest things he's told me he wanted to work on was having a little bit more of a pride in his two-way game and
Huh.
really kind of putting in that extra effort. And I think you saw it. You know, they played him at center for many of those games. They played him on the wing. I think the last game, but just great hands, great situational awareness, being able to execute the way that he does at the speed that he does, both
Yeah.
from a stick handling and skating perspective, these are elite translatable skills that whether he's a center or a winger at the NHL, like there's still ink to be dried on that subject.
Hmm.
I strongly believe that he has the aptitudes for a very responsible, very effective, and very dynamic top six player that, if he truly hits, could really kind of help push the Canadians rebuild to the next level, right? I'm not saying he's the savior, but he would be that missing cog. And I think the Canadians kind of were given a little bit of validation in that view based on the way that he's performed so far this summer, be
Yeah.
it at development camp, be it at the World Junior Showcase. And I think to me, he provides, outside of being a left shot, which he's not, he's a right, he provides the exact opposite skill set that Nick Suzuki does. My 2 cents. Nick Suzuki is not a slow player by any means of the imagination.
No.
I think he's above average skater, but Michael Hage is an elite skater, an elite puck moving center at this stage.
Right.
At the amateur level, of course, he could potentially be that at the NHL level. But the way that he transports the puck with speed, the way that he's able to force defensemen to back up almost instantly after a second or third stride,
Hmm.
that is extremely valuable when you play the style of play that the Montreal Canadiens play. And you know, the other thing I'll throw out is I think that the NCAA CHL ruling played in his favor in a big way because now Hockey Canada won't be able to play those politics games with players that go to the NCAA when it
Exactly.
comes to their selection process. 3/4 of the team is going to be in the NCAA
Huh.
this year. So Michael Hage has more of a shot to make this team than he ever had. And on top of that, he showed what he did at the World Junior Showcase. I think, to me, he showed that he could be played in any situation. Top six, bottom six, center, winger. That kind of versatility not only helps you make championship teams, but it also helps you, get yourself further along in the pros. And I'm glad that after our conversation with him in April, he was able to show that off the last couple of weeks.
I mean, it's going to be a fanboy question, but like listening to you kind of break down Hage and obviously a hell of a lot more pluses than minuses, right? I can't help but go back to his draft year in 2024, and obviously we're talking about the Celebrini draft, right?
Yeah.
Demidov goes fifth overall, and then down the list at 21 is Michael Hage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did they steal him at 21? Like listening to you break it down, I mean, the
I
fanboy
think
take would be
he's,
yes, they stole him, but like
yeah,
you paint a very nice picture of who this player might become.
might. Yeah. I think that when you look at a player's top end potential and then you look at the feasibility of them reaching it,
Yeah.
combined with their personality characteristics, that gives you a projection on a player and where they should go, in a draft. So when you look at a guy that like LJ Mooney, who has all the skill in the world, uh, bright personality, but is 5'7". There's a lot
Yeah.
of risk involved in him hitting his full potential. He gets picked in the 4th round. A guy like Michael Hage, I feel like if he, because obviously he didn't have a very strong start to his draft year with the
Yeah.
Chicago Steel, and I think that impacted him. Obviously, there was the injury. There was obviously what happened with the family, and I think that impacted him. But the second half of the season, he was one of the most performant players in North America. If he would have had that full season the way he played the second half,
He's not a Hab.
probably would have got. No, he's not a Hab. He's not a
Because
Hab.
there were 7 centermen.
Or he would have been the Canadians would have had to trade up again.
Gotcha. Because there were 7 centermen chosen before him when he goes at 21.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I've had a couple of scouts basically mention to me that there's a very real chance that Michael Hage becomes a better NHL player than Jet Luchenko, who went,
Right.
7 or 8 spots before
What
him.
about Tij Iginla? I mean, that was Hab fans
No,
love that name, brother.
Tij Iginla, first of all, I don't think that Tij Iginla is a center. I think he'll ultimately be a winger.
Okay.
But Tij Iginla, obviously, everyone's kind of sleeping on him because he missed the grand majority of last year with that surgery.
Yeah.
So obviously, in situations like that, same thing could be said with Caden Lindstrom. You don't really see those guys that high. But you look at a guy like Michael Hage, over a point per game on an offensively stifled Michigan Wolverines team, not necessarily playing with the best players at all times. It's a little difficult. I think next year, with an extra year of experience, the addition of a couple of marquee players, Malcolm Spence in there, Henry Muse, Jack Ivankovich, like there are a lot of players that have been added to that core that I think Michael Hage is a prime situation to take off. That being said, would I call him a steal at 21? If he hits and becomes a number 2 center, I think that is a steal. But I thought that the 2024 draft was strong. I think you start having this discussion around the 15, 16, 17 range.
Mm-hmm.
And in a redraft, some of the fans that are higher on him could probably see him outside the top 10, just outside the top 10. I know the Canadiens had him around there. I know the Canadiens had him probably somewhere between 10 to 14 or 15. And so when you get him at 21, I mean, yeah, obviously that makes sense. But again, it's because the projection curve on him was so sharp in the second half of his season in the USHL with the Chicago Steel, and that the Canadiens had been following him when he was still playing in Toronto in like midget. So like they had seen him grow, and they felt like there was a blip in his development, and then he continued on. And I think outside the one thing that would inhibit, my honest opinion, the one thing that would inhibit Michael Hage from having a strong season is if he runs into injury trouble again, because that really is what did him in last season. Is he had 2 separate injuries that kind of slowed him down, because or else he could have probably finished the season with 40 points in 30 games instead of, I believe it was 31 in 30 games or something like that.
And then obviously, I mean, if the injuries don't happen, I mean, the showcase of playing with Team Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship and the role he would play there in terms of elevating his status and more eyes on Michael Hage is going to be quite the showcase.
I think he's the kind of player that you want to bring. Is they just want to see that level of maturity in his game, the ability to be able to play, that be on the second line, be it on the third line. Like they just want to be able to bring in a guy that they can trust, that they know is going to be able to, perform at an elite level at both ends of the ice. If he can continue to show that at Michigan to start the year, I think there's a good chance that Michael Hage is on that team.
That's Marco D'Amico. You can follow him with RG Media. Read all his latest. Check him out on all your favorite socials at MN D'Amico.